Guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely incredible. The Guardian, the anti-Islamic media, The Guardian, it posts an article, and this is what's so fascinating. They write about Qatar, built on the bloods of slaves, British football fans boycotting the World Cup. This is the headlines where they start bashing Qatar for apparently using slaves to build the World Cup. Right? It's a British newspaper writing this garbage, right? But what is so fascinating, the unbelievable support from the non-Muslims in the comments. So we go to the comments and it reads, look, Dennis Mumble writes, never thought that The Guardian would also participate in this tiresome, partisan, ideological and frankly anti-Arab propaganda exercise. Gets 146 reactions, 100 likes. Have a look at this. Chris Pringle, he writes, the headline is set to cause controversy as everyone knows how Britain made its wealth. Very little said about the fact that we helped abolish it first and paid with loans to free all slaves. Only finally paid off the debt a few years ago. In Qatar, are they actually slaves or just underpaid and overworked like the NHS workers and others? Catherine Toms writes, good for them for standing up for their principles and beliefs. I also think you're allowed to criticize slavery even if you're from a country then once allowed it. If you weren't, there'd literally be no one on the planet able to criticize it. We can also move to some Muslim comments as well, but it's the amount of likes it's getting. Rahil Raja writes, hypocrisy at its best. Jealousy is the right word for everything just because they've done everything better than you can imagine and you can't bear it. Shame on the BBC propaganda. Just to confirm, they used labour from Asia and we don't mind, we love this World Cup. Stephen Parson writes, some wild takes in this comment section. You guys are sounding a lot like you can't be critical of modern slavery because your ancestors used slaves in this country you currently live in. Have some humanity. Sam Ferdinand writes, I am convinced that the Western politicians and media bashing Qatar because they are giving a voice to the voiceless people of Palestine. Long live Qatar. You are doing a great job. This next one's coming from a Muslim. He writes, a black African Muslim. He writes, the irony of the British tabloid accusing another country of being built on slavery when UK had been dealing in slave trade for 150 years, where they abducted millions of Africans and sold them to Americans and profited immensely. He gets about 149 reactions. Georges writes, I feel so blessed because I've lived long enough to now watch Brits accusing others of building their countries and cultures on the blood of slaves. Talk about irony. Katie Munger writes, outrageous! The Brits have never ever made anybody slaves or took anybody's land and property in its entirety history. Not. Emma Hassan writes, I guess from a Muslim, my God, the hypocrisy of Britain is unlimited. Andrew Elia writes, Just like the British Empire was built from blood of slaves, stolen minerals, the hypocrisy, greed, jealousy from the West should stop. Jalil Lovidi writes, London Metro was mostly built by underpaid labour from Asia. Boycott the bloody tube. I'm very surprised The Guardian is still leaving their post up when they're being bashed in the comments, completely humiliated and bashed, showing the inconsistencies, the double standards, and the hypocrisies. Folks, the West up until today, they've been colonizing, they've been going into the Muslim nations, they've been looting the oil. As Donald Trump said, he is there to loot the oil from northern Syria by killing hundreds of thousands of people in Syria and Iraq. Of course, not to mention all of the Western mega corporate companies who go out and steal millions of dollars of minerals from third world countries. Not to mention all those corporate companies like Nike that for many, many years, for decades, has been going into southeastern countries using labours, forced labours, people underpaying them, making them work in unethical conditions, right? Where they were exposed so many times, where the West pocketed millions and millions of dollars through underpaid staff. And these people want to talk about Qatar and modern day slavery.